Welcome, everyone. This International Women's Day, thought leadership definitely plays a crucial role in driving gender equity, challenging barriers, and shaping a more inclusive future by amplifying voices and advocating for change and inspiring action. Leaders can create lasting impact and opportunities. And in today's session, we have four lovely speakers who will be taking us over their experience in all things thought leadership. So we've got Suman, we've got Andy, we've got Gomati, and we've got Jonathan. So before I get started, I'd just like to introduce myself to all of you as well. So my name is Lavina Ramchandani, and I'm a BCS member. I'm basically supporting with this event and hosting you tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it on the chat. Same for the speakers. If you have any questions that are burning questions, put them on the chat, and we will all have 10 minutes after their 20-minute session to ask them questions live, or you can put them on the chat and I can ask them for you. Apart from that, we have only four speakers tonight, as I've mentioned, and we should be finishing around 8 o'clock. So without further ado, I would like you to all welcome Suman Bala on stage, and I'd just like to give you a small introduction for her talk. She is a testing trainer, an international speaker, and an award-winning test architect. She works currently as a quality engineering manager at Leighton, and she has a very positive reputation for delivering innovative solutions. Today, Suman is going to be talking to us about leading teams through turbulent times. So whenever you're ready, Suman, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Lavina. So let me share my screen. Nope, that's not what I want to share. Yeah, so you should be able to see my slides now. Yeah?
Yes, all good.
Cool. So yeah, like Lavina mentioned, I want to talk about leading teams through turbulence times, because we've all been there where, sometimes, when we say oh, there's a work-life balance, but work plays a vital role. And sometimes when there's a turbulence times there, then it also impacts not just work, but impacts your personal life as well. I've been in tech for, how do I minimize this? I don't want, yeah. So Lavina covered, a bit about already on this one. So I'm the quality engineering manager at Leighton, joined, actually I completed 1 month there. And some of my slides also cover some of the experiences from my previous work. I've been in tech for nearly 2 decades now. And more than that, I have nearly 15 years of leadership experience, and leadership actually, shape up who you are today. So it's not about, people, you're leading someone and, you're helping the team to grow. But I think I would say every experience, every team, I've been part of, whether I was a contributor or I was leading them, I've always learned something, and they have shaped who I am. Yep. Was not so Lavina also covered, I'm the European Testing Manager Award winner, and I've also lots of awards throughout my career, whether it comes to role model or Woman of the Year, that kind of stuff. During pandemic, I worked with 4 other awesome people from a wider testing community, and we created a software testing boot camp, because when you look at the courses, they are quite they teach you theory, but the course we created teach you all those practical ones, and someone who does that can just deep dive into their testing career. And Lavina has also contributed to that. I'm also author of How Can I Test This, where I talk about mobile testing, which different heuristics and mnemonics you can use. And I've facilitated technical workshops with Ministry of Testing, and done some lots of talks and all that with other meetups and conferences. But apart from that, what brings me joy? other than this silly boy who keeps me on my toy, communities. And when I say community, things like, this is a community which brings, people together where we can, we get to talk not about our successes. We also get to, like, talk about our failures, and we know anything you share in the community, no one is going to judge you. There is a support available, because sometimes you can't talk about, like, any challenges, work challenges with maybe like in technical sort of like challenges with some other members of the family, but this, really helps the community. Yes. And I love talking about testing and quality. I can probably talk about testing even in my sleep. I'm a big advocate of automation, but that goes along with exportability and accessibility testing. I don't believe, like, automation can replace that. But once we have a good automation coverage, it means I can, like, do other things which I enjoy, and baking and boxing. And I do know these things don't go together, but yes, I do love baking, and I do enjoy, boxing too. So today, I will touch on 3 different experiences throughout my career, which helped me grow as a, I hope I'm a better leader. Help me grow as a leader, right? So first one is how at the start of my career, how I earned respect through competency, because um, there's a bit of, yep. So let me do that. I think. I was less than 4 years into tech, and I was promoted as a lead uh, engineer there. Uh, so I was quite excited, but I was quite nervous and scared too, because now I was leading a team. There were 2 senior engineers in my team. One had 15 years of experience, another one had 8 years of experience. Me being, quite young to them, and then initially there was like, she just got the role because, like, she gets along with the manager. She got the role because, she's quite chirpy, and, like, she doesn't do anything, that kind of thing. So being a new leader can be scary, especially because I knew, like, the role I got was through my competency, like I had those, like, technical skills. I could lead, like, those projects technically, but, anything from people. But I didn't go, and, like, one of my friends was like, I'm going to just have a talk to them and, make them stop. I was like, for me, sometimes action speaks more than words. And because they were quite new member to my team, yes, they had a more experience than me, but they were still new to the business. They never worked with me before. So I didn't judge them. What I did was I started, creating some strategies for building credibility. I was quite open with their communication. Like, anything I would do, let's say, because back then, it was quite waterfall model, right? So you have to create test plan, test strategy up in front. So anything I would create, I would include them. So it was not me just, going and presenting or saying, I would, take their inputs. I would say, okay, what would you do in that? And so it was going to quite create that collaborative environment where when I would, like, share my ideas, they started to feel, yeah, okay, she also knows that stuff, but they also felt inclusive. For me, inclusivity means a lot. And then we started, like, fostering relationship across all other organizations. So rather than, sitting in our own bubble, because back then it was like dev and tests would be like, black and white. Dev will sit on the north corner of the office, and then testing team will sit in the south corner. Things were like that. So I started, like, fostering those relationship, and I made really good some friends with, whether it was a dev or a UI designer. Those I started sharing things on. Things we were learning, uh, anything we would do, maybe like, I didn't even know, book bash from that time, and we were doing, those kind of things with the team. I didn't know about, shift left, but we were, like, working with the UI designers that time. So we started, showing all these things, because it was not me which was shining through, but by doing, these, using strategy for building, credibility. Now, the team member in my team, yes, they they kind of like started appreciating my efforts. But at the same time, the wider teams, wider business also started to think like, okay, testing is not a bottleneck. Testing doesn't come in. They also started including them into those discussions. So that was quite nice. And then the turning point came, because till then it was about, yes, I have to prove that I can do this job. I have to prove that, like, yes, I'm younger than them, but I know my skills. But then it started to, gaining point. They started to turn to me, Suman, what do you think? What approach should we take? Okay, we need to do a POC. Suman, which tools you use? So we started using, because I think once you have a trust in your leadership, I think then your job is done. If your team, trust you with those things, and not just, we got to a point that we were not just, like sharing work things, we would, like share things about someone has any like, struggle or challenges they're facing in their life, or any like, career progression. So then I think once you build that level of trust, I think as a leader, you've done your job. Um, and now the second one, I like to talk about experience navigating, organization challenges with integrity, because I'm sure most of you have been there where there would be some like, organization restructure, and now maybe you're part of some of the team, or maybe your manager is leaving, like something like that, or someone you quite rely on. There was a time in my career, we were facing budget cuts, and there was a bit of organization restructure as well. But the budget cut was only done within the mobile team. We had almost 70% of our team members were contractors that time, and then all of a sudden, every time there's a budget cut, few people to go is like, who will go, who will come, and even like that time, it was quite stressful for the permanent members as well, because they didn't know what's going to happen and how we are going to balance this out. Because if as a 7 member from your 10 members team go, how you're going to balance that workload too. And they were not calm, thinking, oh yeah, we are permanent, not going to anything else. But I think it was quite, intense. And I remember my son was not even born, and he got his first, hand foot mouth disease. I got a call, and I was like, what is it? Like, I don't, and I went to office, found about this, like, budget cuts, everything is happening. Got a call from nursery, and all of a sudden, my manager knew something is not right. I was like, yeah, I'm sorting these things, but I need to like, rush back. I explained that, and he was like, just go, don't worry. I was like, but no, I need to care for my team as well. Otherwise, like, they are scared. I can't, just leave them and disappear. So as a manager or as a leader, I think you have to sometimes put your team above your needs. But because I was lucky enough that I had a manager who could, like support. So I think it works in like both way. So I was able to support my team because I had, that support too. So what I did at the time was a human, central leadership. So for me, it was a team. I didn't care about whether someone was contractor or permanent. Team is team, right? You care about all these members, whether it's the contractor or permanent. They are putting that effort. So what I started doing was I had one-to-ones with individuals. I discussed about, their future options, because some people said it's okay if we go back. We are, like we are contractor from a third party, they will find another client for us. But there were some people who were like, we really want to get into automation. That's what we started. So we don't want to like stop that. So, what I also did was that time extended to my, like wider network, started talking to them, and I asked them, okay, do you have a role for that? And, like gave those like, some recommendations. Even for my permanent contract team members, good to say, only 10% people who actually left because we couldn't find, but 80% or 80 to 90% of contractor managed to find like, roles for them within that particular organization. And then that also, opened some network opportunities for me, because when you're in office, you're busy with your work, you just, get to do more in but because of, these network opportunities, I was reaching out to every other leader in the organization, asking them what kind of how my team can support them, even if it's not for a secondment. We actually seconded one of the quality engineer that time to a dev role because they were like, okay, we are looking for some starter associate one. And I was like, yeah, he understands the code. So, spoke to them, and in the end, after that year's comment, he ended up turning Android engineer. So I think sometimes when these blips come and there's a um organization restructure, something like that, don't take all this negative. I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes these, depths can create that, growth opportunities as well. That's what, I faced. But all this time, I made sure that every member is heard, every member, I didn't leave anyone yet. You're a contractor, you do your job. So I was there to provide that support. And one of the reasons I was also able to provide because I genuinely believed in those members. So if anytime you are going through any, let's say you're going through an organization, okay, you are scared, open to your network because they might be able to find somewhere. And most of the times when there are such kind of restructures, the people, the team who's letting you, they are also not happy. They will always take you back if they could later on. So it's always leave things on a positive note and network. So protecting members, I think I kind of it's not over, it's over. So I didn't test my own slides. So protecting, so ensure an individual was supported. And I also wrote in some personalized recommendation and proactive outreach. But by doing this proactive outreach to other departments, kind of my network also grew. So it was win-win for everyone. So what it helped was because the entire team, people who were seconded to other teams or people who, stayed in that one, the entire team noticed that it was not just my sole effort. Everyone was making effort to find roles, but I think you could see that how the team is supporting each other, and then the team was stronger because it removed morale, to improve the collaboration. Yes, we were less members that time, but the business knew that your your team size is half by now. But I think they knew that, yeah, we can survive together, we can support each other. So it was not about you doing or you versus me. The team came together and they literally supported each other. So I think that was really, really good to see. So like I said, every negative, or when we see something is negative, it can turn out to positive just by uh, using some strategies. In this particular case, it was all down to networking. Now, last but not least is shielding teams from toxic leadership. And I'm sure some of you have been there. So just want you to have you ever worked in a hostile environment? I can't, I'm just using one screen right now, so I can't go through the chats. Someone would like to maybe unmute themselves and talk about if you have been through some hostile environment where you're oh, I don't want to work, or thinking about what should I do next.
I think I can go.
Yeah.
It's when sometimes I understand that majority of us work with suppliers, but when suppliers seem like they have the power over actually permanent members, that's really
Mm-hmm.
sometimes sad to see because it feels that sometimes they remind you what is your value and you start getting imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So, are we overpowering suppliers? Should we own the information more than suppliers? Is where I sometimes struggle because sometimes it feels like because suppliers want to earn business, they like to step toes sometimes on things, and it's not a very positive environment. So,
Yeah.
I felt hostile in such situations.
Yep. I'm really sorry to hear, but I can understand it can be how do you define your role, or why I know sometimes people don't like, do knowledge sharing because they just want to keep it to themselves. It's that, like they think that that's our USP. We share, will be out of the, I've worked with like some people like that. So really sorry, you have also faced the same. Anyone else?
Yeah. Yeah. I've also worked in a toxic environment years ago as well, and it I was also bullied in one of my roles as well, and it just affected my mental health and created a really bad working environment, and it affected me wanting to do the work, and it just caused me a lot of anxiety, which um was also dismissed by my manager as well, just saying that I was just daydreaming.
Yeah.
But it just created a really nasty sort of like atmosphere within the air. Sorry.
Yeah, and I can kind of like, relate because this particular experience I'm sharing is quite similar. Where again, luckily, I had a support from my manager and the like tech team, but we were bullied by a CEO, and where even a small, minor low priority bug they will see on the app, they will post and ask, like, why the testing is not done. And then, like, we, the team who's working remotely, we are just like, twiddling our thumbs, not doing anything. And there was a lot. And I was also asked, like, you being a team, quality engineering lead, your role is not just in tech, you need to like integrate with the business. But I was already like, coordinating with other teams and we didn't know like what to do. And it was not just me. There were like lots of people who were, being targeted, from Android engineer to engineering manager to a product owner, where they also received like DMs and threatening like your end of like, month to prove this, or sometime we'll get a feedback from a CEO on Slack, open Slack channel saying, "Oh, this is rubbish," and we'll ask, "Okay, what feature you would like to see?" And there's like, just go find yourself. Um, so that was a quite like stressful time because as tech team we genuinely believed in the project. 80% of our team was remote, and we were quite collaborative. There's in testing like worked really well. Product I think it was one thing where I really enjoyed working with the team, but all this like toxic culture where someone on the maternity leave they had to constantly check Slack message because they were scared of CEO, right? And I was like, I can't survive in that environment. But at the same time, when all this like stuff was going on, I kind of protected my team, which is more like. So what I did that time was, because I was going through this and I knew there's a new, they also hired another CEO, and for that person, testing or quality had no value. They were like, you don't do anything. We see, like bugs. But then I said, yeah, we are, doing continuous testing. We test, like we find lots of issues during our sprint and, regression. But they're like, but where's that? So we started producing like some metrics and all that for them. But what I did that time, I used my leadership umbrella rather than funnel, using a funnel. I know there's some people, some leaders who are like, whatever I get, I'm going to like, be transparent and share everything, right? That we are getting all this crap from, other parts of the business. But what, in one sense, I wanted to be open with my team about that, but at the same, I wanted to protect them as well, because the more negative feedback I'll feed to them, they will go through same anxiety, same stress I was dealing that time. What I started doing that time, anything, any challenge which they will throw at me, I will as a girl, I will find, okay, what we can demonstrate, and I will start saying, okay, let's do these things. I will talk to my team in a positive way, saying, let's start producing these kind of things. Let's do more automation demos, for example. Let's start sharing our defect removal efficiency, that kind of thing. So I think more positive one. But for me, once someone is a bully, they're a bully. No matter whatever you do, at some point that crap starts to falling on the team as well, because once it was the public feedback channels, the team started seeing, and then I was that time I was open, and they were like, we had no clue this was all going for from past 3 to 4 months. So if you are a leader and you go through any of these, my suggestion to you would be like, start using your umbrella rather than being a funnel. Yes, be open to the team, but be open in a way so that you are not, passing your stress to them and then they are also stressed. As a leader, your role is not to just filter everything through. 1 minute, something happened. I think I was here. Nope. I should know my slides, right? Yeah. So what I did was because we knew we internally are doing a good job and everyone in the tech team, was supporting. So what we started doing was we established an internal recognition system. We were like, yeah, we are going to yes, create and I know there's I've done some intentional type of mistakes as well, just to see, because yes, I'm hoping some of you are testers in here and you can identify those things too. And then we started creating that. Yes, maybe people who are in outside the tech team, they don't realize the value and potential, but we started doing shout outs to team and saying, okay, this person did I would like to every Tuesday I will give a shout out on Happy Tuesday. Shout out to this person, because shout out to Lavina because she created a really great test plan and our release was smooth. That kind of things. And we also, because I knew with this toxic culture, I started looking for the roles, but I knew maybe my team also needs to have some tools and techniques so that if things go south, they have a secure career too. What I started doing was I started doing some individual workshops. Someone who joined the team less than 3 months ago, she joined with UI automation API, so did some Postman one-to-one workshops with her, and then someone who wants, and then did some team within the team thing. So we created that individual development plan too, so that if they want to go and start looking for the job, they can do. And at the same time I said, be open with me. Yes, I know I'm looking. If you're also looking, or if you want to look, I can do your CV reviews. I can find jobs and recommend. I can write LinkedIn recommendation and all that. So we started doing thing. I think we created a really good supporting environment within the team. So all that noise, we started to filter that out, and that's where the strategic resilience came in. Choose your battle wisely, because there was time in the morning you will log in and you will see a message which literally felt like I'm going to turn off my laptop and go away. But what we started doing was we said, okay, this person, they don't know how we work, and we are going to prove by delivering those features. So we had a really crucial timeline. We were giving less than 6 weeks to deliver something. The team delivered in less than 6 weeks time. The release was smooth, regression was smooth, entire delivery was smooth. We did that support during Christmas time, hardly any customer facing issues, and we rocked. So usually our sales, let's say it was X amount, and after that release, we actually made up to 10 times sales. And then the person who was bullying the team initially, saying they don't know what to do, and it can't be remote, people need to come to the office because remote, I think that changed, that helped. But the thing with bullies is they might settle, they will come again, but choose your battle wisely, prove yourself. And if you think that's bullies coming again and again, then I would say go somewhere where you're appreciated, because you should enjoy your work. Work shouldn't be something which is causing stress. I know I had stress at time. I was taking I was struggling to sleep, so you shouldn't be in that position. So yes, you have to choose your battle wisely. You can't fight or argue with people. So go somewhere where people will appreciate you. And I'm glad I joined Leighton, because I feel seen, I feel appreciated. So yeah, that's about me. And finally, some key conclusion. So the leadership principles team is all about together, everyone achieves more. So prioritize people or process, create that psychological safety within your teams, and give value to relationship building, because any relationship you will make in that role, it 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 will give you some value later on as well. I know I've worked with some of uh people in the past, and I will now they I count them as friends, that they are not just colleagues anymore, and Lavina is one of them. And then teach you a skill, team, about strategic navigation skills as well, because the people who are in your team, they are future leaders, so you want to make sure they are also prioritizing people or process, and they have those tools to navigate through. And any challenging time, yes, when we are going through that stress and challenging and toxic environment and all that stuff, it's a learning. We don't experience, we don't realize in that moment, but once you come out of that blip, and then you realize, okay, how much I've grown while dealing with all this. So yeah, make sure you share these things with your team too. So that's all. I'll stop share and see if anyone has any questions, or people can
Thank
ask
you
as
so
well.
much. Thank you so much. I think first of all, your slides are so nice and they were really interactive. Like, you can keep things in memory. It was so nicely done. I really
Although I
appreciate
couldn't
that.
navigate in between.
It's really, really nice. But the stage is open now for questions. So, any questions for Suman, please? Either you can unmute yourself or you can put them on the chat for me and I can ask Suman.
I've got a question for you, Seaman.
Yeah.
What inspired you to develop a career as a tester? Initially.
So, like most people, I did not fall into testing, and I'm a bit of rebel. When I started my career, like I said, it was dev versus test, and testers was seen as third class citizens, right? One of the delivery managers said, you should be a developer because you know how to write a code. So I did my computer science and engineering, and that hit hard, right? Like, why you're not appreciating other team members' work and value? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a tester. And he was like, you won't enjoy it. It's not a skill. And I was like, I'm going to be a tester. That's what I'm going to, and we'll, review later on. And then they're like, oh, okay, off. You'll be a tester. And then I was giving a project for API automation, because I was like, I'm going to do some automation and prove them, that we have some technical skills. I was working with Samsung. It was, when you press home button, menu button on a TV, a pop-up comes. Those APIs I have to test. And I didn't know how to test because there was nothing in there. So I worked with developers at time, but that's how I started my career, because someone said testers are not technical, and I wanted to prove them wrong. And I'm glad I did, because testing is something I genuinely love. I love what I do. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any more questions for Suman?
Nope. But if someone thinks, they are going through some challenging times and they don't feel comfortable talking openly, my LinkedIn DMs are always open. Feel free to reach out to me.
Suman, I have one question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So you talk about the people who are holding the knowledge, right? So like it's very evident, maybe like in a consultancy, industry, where multiple clients. I mean, not the multiple client, multiple vendors are working for a same project. So I've seen it multiple times in my career, like I mean, when in the testing team, maybe from one consultancy and dev is from another, there is always a knowledge gap. and people, we need to go and get the knowledge, like sometimes they won't share. So have you any time like come across similar situations in your career?
Yeah, I did. And I remember when I recently, joined one of the organization, there used to be a big gap. And it's not, like when your offshore team is, like remote, you can't say, oh, I'll bring cookies and then let's, share. So it's quite difficult, when some of your members are like, remote in that case. And I do not advocate for everyone should be in the office. But what I did was like I had like, some one-to-ones with individual, and I started saying like, what they actually like about, what their passion, and I started talking to them, like, made that relationship. So I focused on that relationship building, and then I started, like talking about work, the strategy. But at the same time, I said like anything they will share with me, this doesn't mean like they will be out of that role, but what we can do is together we can create some other opportunities for them within the business. So that's how like we started working on the teams, and we started like some things like testing party. Lavina started a testing forum where everyone was coming together and sharing, because in that case it was not I am opening my cards, but it was more about I am kind of like sharing and celebrating what we have achieved as a team, and that opened like few doors.
Okay, good to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So I guess if you have any other questions, I have put Suman's LinkedIn on the chat. Please feel free to reach out and connect with her. And thank you so much, Suman. It was really, really interesting. So thank you so much for being part of BCS SIGiST IWD this year. And congratulations on International Women's Day as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as
Yeah,
well.
really good talk, Seaman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, we are going to go to Andy now. So Andy Shaw, he is a test analyst at Loxam. He has been a member at BCS for over 11 years now, and he has helped encourage and inspire female STEM progression, been an ally for different groups and researchers, and delivers talks on mental health. So I would like to welcome Andy on stage, and he will be talking to us today about leading and driving change in an uncertain time.
So thanks, Savina, and thank you everyone for coming today as well. And it's really great to be back here as well. So can everyone first test of the day? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to share. So I did a talk for International Women's Day last year, and I've focused this year on thought leadership and testing. This year, this talk as well is focused on two key areas which I'm really passionate about: diversity as well as mental health as well. So it's how we can all take the lead and how we can all promote diversity and inclusion. So first of all, I have a question for you all. Do you think testing is evolving?
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. I'm going to ask you another question in a minute. So with testing, we have tests using AI as well, which I'm planning to learn at some point as well to see how it can add value to the testing that I'm doing as well. We also have automation testing as well, which I've done some automation as well, and I'm also learning how to code in languages like Python to help better code tests as well. There's also data-driven testing as well. However, the next question is diversity involved with testing, evolving with your testing as well? For testing to evolve and for testing to add value to organizations, diversity also needs to be taken into account. So a lack of diversity within testing and organizations is very, very bad, because it causes a lack of innovation with your testing that you're doing. It stifles your creativity and you're stuck doing the same old ways of testing, whether it's functional testing, automation testing, and not looking at other ways of testing or how you can develop your tests as well. It also prevents growth within your organization and has an increased AI bias, especially when you're testing, and especially towards different groups as well. So as testing professionals and as leaders, we're all leaders. We're all leaders, by the way. Lack of diversity is bad, and we need to embrace diversity in order to develop testing strategies, testing skills, as well as our testing teams within organizations. So diversity is one of the key areas of this talk, and it is essential for teams to develop because it promotes creativity where different ideas are welcomed and encouraged. For example, looking at different ways of testing, different ways of performing exploratory tests for testing different pieces of software. It helps organizations stay competitive because people see different parts of the software and how to test it from different angles. So women, non-binary people, men, as well as people from other backgrounds like the LGBTQIA plus, neurodiverse professionals, as well as people with disabilities and from different backgrounds. Everybody sees things at their own different angles, and embracing it helps your organization stay competitive and stay relevant, especially with the software you're developing. It also increases top talent as well, and it attracts more people. I mean, who would really want to work in an organization where everybody thinks the same, ideas are not encouraged, and DEI and initiatives are not welcomed, and diversity isn't important to an organization's agenda? I certainly wouldn't. And the bottom line, and it also benefits the bottom line as well, because it helps to encourage retention and more within your employees, especially women and people from different backgrounds. Also, it has increased use of your products, an increased client base as well, makes organizations increase with profitability as well. So diversity is important, and testing is one area where every tester, including myself, is different from another tester, yet we all bring our own skills and our own thoughts to the table. So there's many fantastic female testers out there as well, who I find really inspiring. Grace Hopper being one of them, but other people like Lavina, Nicola, Gamafi, Beth, Maddie, and other testers like Doc Graham, Isabel Evans, who have become trailblazers as testers. So many women I've worked alongside have been brilliant at collaboration ideas, collaborating different ways of testing things. Instead of just writing testing scripts, having sessions where we'll identify how we can test things, what sort of edge cases to look for as well, and making sure that we have a great coverage within testing your products. Half of my managers, when I've worked in testing, have been female, and many of those I've developed great working relationships as well, and admire and respect them for all they do. They're very strong communicators, and therefore QA roles are really great for them as well, because they can explain problems, they can explain ways of how to raise bugs and how to replicate bugs as well, so that any developer or a tester, if needing to test it again, can understand what needs to be tested. They also bring some fresh perspectives and ideas, and many women also add value to testing role to the organisations in which we work for, because they bring ideas of how to test, but don't just they help to challenge the status quo within testing and encourage others as well to look at things in different ways as well. Many women, non-binary professionals, as well as people from different backgrounds, also have a great attention to detail as well, including some neurodivergent professionals as well, where test scripts for testing specific areas are meticulous and to detail, so that anybody can pick them up and understand them. And many provide comprehensive testing strategies and testing sort of entry and exit reports as well, to show which areas of testing have been covered, which areas have been focused on, if risk-based testing has been applied, and which areas have been automated for testing, and what other kinds of testing has been done as well. So the testing teams and organisations are only as good as the people in them. But in order to develop testing teams and to develop testing as a career, as a community, we need to encourage and celebrate female and non-binary professionals who have developed careers in testing. So I'm going to talk about leadership and how women can develop careers in testing. So from this, I'm going to say we're all leaders in our own right. We take the lead to do things. We take the lead to do the right things, and we take the lead ourselves to learn. So, firstly, build your network. If you can do, attend networking events where possible. And I do appreciate for some people, including myself, it can be difficult to do sometimes with other commitments that you may have. But however, also reach out to professionals on LinkedIn and connect to them. Share ideas and showcase what skills you're learning as well on LinkedIn, because it will show that you're interested in a career in testing. So for myself, I'm learning how to code in languages like Python, as well as using the Tester magazine as well, to help encourage women and everybody from the testing community to share ideas and encourage inclusion and diversity within testing and the tech community. Get yourself a mentor or two or even three who can give you advice and coach you and guide you in different ways of testing as well, with practical experiences. Also share with them your insights as well. So I see mentoring as a two-way experience. I'll help mentor people as well. However, I'll also equally learn from my mentees as well. There's a software testing boot camp as well, which Suman, who delivered your talk, was excellent earlier on. Who Suman has helped co-organize and created and run as well, and it provides different ways of how you can develop yourself as a tester and learn about different areas of testing, with examples as well to help you develop skills. And if you're in the West Yorkshire area as well, if you're wanting to learn testing, the software testing bootcamp is a must. Take ownership of your career and upskill and development. Learn different ways of testing. Speak to different professionals who've developed careers in specific kinds of testing. So Lavina is a great accessibility tester. So if you're wanting to learn accessibility, speak to people like Adi Stokes and Lavina, as well as professionals like Deborah Reed as well, who can give you advice and guidance on how to get started. Also, look at different, if you want to, look at different coding skills as well, and see what courses are out there as well to help you as well. Some courses are free and give you a taster into different areas of testing. Others might be may have a small charge. However, make sure that you you research before paying for a course as well, and finding it and hope and make sure that it works for you. You have expertise regardless of what industries you work in. Use that to your advantage. Show that what you can offer as well to an organisation. If you worked in an industry like retail or different industries like hospitality, use those skills. How you can apply the skills you've learnt from there into a testing role, and know that you know your worth. Research your salary and look at opportunities of how you can upskill and develop yourself, and speak to professionals and know what you can bring to an organization, you can bring and how you can add value. Don't think that because you might not have experience that you're not going to be considered. For when I started one of my first roles in testing, I had very little experience, probably none, about geology. However, I got the job because I said that I really wanted to learn about geology, and spent the first day of work looking at seismic horizons and juxtapositions within geology. Allyship is another thing which we can all learn from as well. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, how do you think we can all be allies to encourage more women, more non-binary professionals, as well as other neurodivergent professionals and people from different backgrounds into testing careers? So I'm going to open the floor. I'm going to open the floor for ideas.
Have more safe spaces, like most events where we can just talk how we feel.
Thank you.
Include people when you make any decisions, because once you start involving them, then they will also involve you. It's a two-way street.
I think one of the ones that someone said, celebrate success of your peers. That's very important. I think if we don't do that, we are just working 9 to 5, and that's it. But we should appreciate those we work with and the work that is being done at the end by all of us. We are at the end of it, we are all quality engineers, right? So it's really important to celebrate one another.
Definitely. I think that's one good thing about this event as well, Lavina, that we celebrate each other, and we celebrate our differences, and the fact that we're all diverse professionals as well. Yes, Nicola?
Hi, Andy. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I had some more thoughts. I mean, obviously, we're talking about allyship here, so we can do more to try and help people to move along in their careers by looking for sponsorship. Mentorship is great when you have something very specific that you want to look at in terms of maybe along the same lines of the career that you're, or the role you're currently in. But if you're looking to move up, it might be that you need to look to sponsorship, which is something that companies don't speak about that much. But certainly to have a sponsor from leadership or from another team that is higher up than you, who is willing to be your champion, essentially your cheerleader, and speak on your behalf in terms of making sure that people know who you are. Sometimes that can be really helpful, because then you can be in the right place at the right time. But certainly your skills are, you know, valid and they're relevant for any roles that you're thinking about going for, but they can maybe make sure that people notice your skills if they haven't really paid attention before, and that can often lead to opportunities. So, you know, looking to sponsorship is important too.
Thank you. Some really great ideas as well, and I'm going to share this slide because allyship is everybody's responsibility. So first of all, eliminating unconscious bias from our recruitment practices, from our decision making, as well as within our teams, and challenging sort of perceived thoughts so that everybody feels included and understood. Making sure as well which we celebrate different professionals in testing as well, and different role models. So for example, in testing, you've got fantastic role models like Nicola, Gamafi, Lavina, Beth, Jonathan, Mike, Maddie, as well as others like Suman, Doc Graham, Gwen Diagram, AD Stokes, who all are fantastic testers within their own right, and people who I certainly respect as testing professionals as well. And again, mentorship as well as sponsorship will help as well, encourage more people from different backgrounds to develop careers as testing. Leadership doesn't just have to be from the management and CEO, it can come from everybody. So encourage people from all walks of life who may not have considered testing to consider careers in testing, and to inspire them. Also, within your organisations, if things aren't right, if there's bullying or harassment, or if there's anything which makes the environment toxic or not inclusive, speak up, call it out, raise your concerns, do the right thing. Let's make testing and the tech community an environment where people feel nurtured, understood, and that everybody can reach their potential and thrive. And inclusive environments are essential for testing teams to grow, as well as tech teams, and encouraging more women, non-binary professionals, as well as people from different backgrounds to develop careers in testing. So allyship, I'm going to say this again, it's everybody's responsibility. We all have a part to play. So I'm just going to talk about another area about taking the lead is within mental health. So within mental health, many organisations can be fast-paced, trying to juggle too many projects at once, depending which organisations you are, especially where some organisations you've actually got different ways of working and different ways of running projects, which can be quite confusing. A number of professionals I know have experienced burned out by working long hours, trying to get everything done, trying to manage the workloads, and getting exhausted, especially within testing, which is not always considered as valued as what development is. Many testing professionals sometimes can work in isolation, where they're working from home, or they feel that everything is quite busy for it's too bit everything is busy, and they feel that they're sort of rushed to get things done, sometimes with very little time, very short notice in order to do things. Many professionals, including women, non-binary people, as well as neurodivergent professionals, or as well as men, also have imposter syndrome. I myself, I have imposter syndrome. I feel a lot of the time I'm a complete fraud, and I feel a lot of the time I'm not as good as a lot of other testers who are currently out there. However, to counteract these things, the roles we can counteract it by helping professionals make sure the roles accommodate their needs and accommodate their circumstances as well, taking them into account where necessary. So depending on how you prefer to work, whether it's a hybrid role or whether you prefer to work from home or work in an office, find what works for you, making sure as well that you have the balance between work and life as well. So for myself, I'll work as hard as I can throughout the day as well. However, I'll make sure as well that I have interests outside of work once I've finished, including martial arts, which helps me to balance my work like as well as life, as well as spending time with family. If you've done something well, if colleagues have said you've done well with something, or if someone said something nice, take note of it. At work, I have a feel-good folder of things where professionals throughout different workplaces where I've worked have said good things about what work I've done, or really positive feedback. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I'll take a look at that to sort of help me realise that I'm doing better than I think. Also, as well, if you need to, please reach out. Please talk to somebody as well. Talking helps, and it helps you feel that you're not alone. And make sure as well, if you see that somebody may be struggling, ask how they are. Ask, show people that you care as well. Sometimes just how are you doing, even though they may not reply straight away, at least they know that you care for them. So make sure that you look after your mental health as well, and eat reasonable, make sure that you're watching what you eat and not drinking too much caffeine or alcohol and making sure that you take, where possible, taking a walk or doing some exercise as well can help with mental health. Mental health is also vital for organisations to thrive, and the most successful organisations now and in the future are the ones who will help with mental health. So we have great role models within the testing industry, and managers who are open about mental health as well, so that it helps encourage people that they're not alone. Creating a safe environment where professionals feel nurtured, supported, and understood, where managers inspire and listen to their colleagues as well, so that everybody feels understood and accepted. One of the best environments I worked was a place where managers understood me and accepted me for who I am. They encouraged me to try different things where testing as well, and even though I made mistakes, I'd learn from the mistake, and they'd be understanding, and they always treated me with respect, and I respected them in return. Making sure that any plans within your organisations or any work plans are transparent and not sort of giving mixed messages as to what areas are important, and making sure that everybody understands how they can add value. Treating everybody fairly is very important. One organisation I worked with treated everybody fairly and understood them, and embraced diversity and inclusion in everything that it did. People had ideas which were understood, and morale was boosted within the organisation, and everybody felt they had a part to play. And giving people opportunities for upskilling and opportunities to develop, as well as opportunities to manage the mental health and take care of their own well-being. So I worked under a really good manager who encouraged me to try different ways of testing, including database testing, cross-browser testing, and asked me to sort of identify any key differences to help me develop as a tester and as a professional. That experience was like gold dust because I felt valued and understood, and they also, as well as my mental health was also improving as well. And the company culture is very important as well. So making sure you have a company culture which is nurturing, understanding, and encourages people to want to work for that organisation instead of a toxic culture. So I've got some notes on with research for the talk as well, which I'm happy to share after this event. But my concluding thoughts are that we're all leaders in our own right. We can all take the lead to make testing and the tech community an even better place for professionals to develop their careers. Mental health as well is also important, and sharing our stories, learning from one another and helping one another is going to help get us there. So I hope you all like it, and I hope this has helped. And thank you for letting me give me the opportunity to talk at the event as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Andy. Really, really nice talk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To the audience, any questions for Andy?
Okay.
And I have put his LinkedIn
Thank you.
details on the chat. Any questions for Andy right now? Okay, I'll take silence as no questions. But if something does occur to you that you could relate with Andy or wanted to sort of ask him how he dealt with a certain situation, feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn, and hopefully you can network there. So thank you very, very much, Andy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Lavina, is there any chance we can switch myself around? I've got a drop off to do.
Okay, sure. Gomathi, are you okay with that?
I'm good. Yeah, all good.
Awesome.
Jonathan can go.
Go for it, Jonathan. So before I get Jonathan on the stage, I just wanted to sort of introduce Jonathan to all of you. He's actually a Chief AI Officer at Eggplant, a strategic thought leader and specializing in emerging technologies, innovation, and automation. A fellow at BCS, as well as a host for the CTO Lead event in Canada. So whenever you're ready, Jonathan, the stage is yours.
Wonderful. And I guess you can see my screen. So yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. You know, I put these slides together just literally after listening to Andy and Seaman at the start, and really just wanted to kind of echo some of the talks which they said. You know, Andy covered a fantastic point around neurodiversity. So what I've done is I've included a link, and obviously Lavina nicely just introducing me there. I mentioning that I do the podcasts on the QAlead.com, and which is now the CTO lead. And I also do testing talks, another podcast where I try and interview guests, especially around in the QA and testing space. But yeah, I think Andy picked up a really good point around, you know, the importance of neurodiversity, and also, you know, how to support that within your industry. And you know, that's just one of many, many components, really. So anyway, I thought I'd move on quickly. And first, again, thanks again to Lavina for organizing this fabulous event. And then secondly, you know, as part of the BCS committee. So this is the SIGiST committee, which I've been lucky enough to be part of. You can't really see, but I've added my badges in here as well, because what I do every year is do the Society for Women Engineers event, which is out in Barcelona, which you can see on the right-hand side. So really, it's just a kind of advocacy around supporting STEM development, as kind of was introduced at the start. So, you know, I do a lot of talking, and I noticed when Lavina reached out that I'd given this title around AI assurance and how to test in agentic AI. And so actually this is me last week in Rotterdam. And so I've actually, because we've only got 20 minutes here, and I just wanted to kind of give the highlights and really allow you guys to go off afterwards and then watch that at your own convenience. I've just added a link to YouTube for the actual 30-minute talk. If you want to get down a little bit more detail around agentic AI and really what that kind of means. But yeah, part of it is I wanted to kind of share some of my kind of experience, but also kind of inspiration in especially when we're talking about International Women's Day for some of the amazing speakers. I think there's been numerous calls out of Lavina and Gabati and Nicola and all the team that we have here at the BCS who have done some amazing talks and again spend a lot of time traveling. I've also had the opportunity to work with other people in my career who are also TED speakers. My TED talk was back in 2007, but actually I wanted to just add, and I've added the QR code in the middle here, is Dr. Poppy Crum. She's a lecturer on neuroscience at Stanford University. I should have put onto this link. I actually did a talk with her. I think it was a couple of years back, but her TED talk is phenomenal. I'd recommend checking that out as well if you're wanting to look at being inspired by women speakers who and I know there was some great call outs to people like Dorothy Graham and Isabel earlier on. Who was not Isabel, but Fiona was at the event last week, and I had an opportunity to catch up with her. I did mention, well, what kind of skills do you need, especially in AI? And again, this is a really interesting thing with so much noise and news going on about, AI in technology, but also how it's disrupting AI. I kind of wanted to kind of extend out a link to a talk that we organized back in January. Actually, Gamati was part of that group, and we did a talk on what AI skills do you need in 2025, and we kind of looked at it, and I'd recommend the panel discussion where we kind of went through with a number of other professionals and just really talked about, well, what kind of skills do you need to be thinking about or learning to take advantage of these AI tools? Of course, Gamati had some great thing, and I apologize, that was just a screenshot I just took. And Stella, I worked with MIT during COVID for the COVID vaccination and the contact tracing. And so, some really great stuff there. I'd recommend again, if you've got some time to talk about that. Gabati doesn't like that photo. She's like, why did you pause it right mid-sentence? I'll skip past it, don't worry.
Thank you. It looked like I'm arguing with someone furiously.
I think you were at the time, which was probably why it's so good to be part of the panel discussion. So as promised, I was going to include my talk from the test automation days last week. I'm actually flying out tomorrow to Athens to do the AI Disrupt Summit. But last week I was with Anna, who's on the right here, and we were talking to a whole stack of young professionals who were starting their career. So there's a number of women from South Africa University and who were pretty much not in the computer science or computing landscape, who were kind of asking us questions at the booth around, well, what skills should they be learning? And I know Andy mentioned, he's learning Python at the moment. Obviously it's a hot language to be learning, but there's also kind of these are softer side skills. And again, covered in the first two talk around leadership, creating safe spaces, really about your ability to communicate well with other people in the industry. And those social skills are incredibly useful. And I think it's a lot to do with developing not only your foundational STEMs skills, but also really looking at going on your own personal journey, right? And I think when we talk about our personal journeys, they can be numerous different things. I started out back in the 90s, and my mentor was Dorothy Graham, who was actually one of the founders of the the SIGiST group many years ago, and I reached out to Dot in the 90s because the test automation book was my Bible. And, part of it was I kind of, used it every day. I was an automation engineer. And then, I really kind of found my place, moved, you can see here, moved over to Silicon Valley. I did some guest lecturing at Stanford. I got into artificial intelligence, and I've been doing that for probably the last 10, 12 years. But that journey started with Dot, and I was lucky enough to speak with Dot, to keynote at the Automation Star this year. On stage, she was celebrating 50 years of doing automation. I was celebrating 25, which seemed incredibly insignificant in comparison. But part of it is that, like both Andy said on the last talk, Dorothy is the grandmother of automation. She was the first person to write any code, test automation code, back in 1976 for Bell Labs. And she's still 1,000 talks on the stage later. She's still there and still supporting the community. And I think that's a really big thing. Andy mentioned, and I know Lavina mentioned at the start, speaking of the MOT, at finding her community really early on and then developing on those skills. I think part of it is get involved. And Andy said, go to events, even if you can't physically turn up to those events. You can look at events like this free, which you can, or you can attend virtually. And I think also Andy mentioned Testing Peers in Nottingham this week, which again, another great event, where you can really socialize with other people in your industry. So anyway, I know I've got less than 10 minutes, so I kind of wanted to give at least a bit about agentic AI and really kind of give at least some foundational kind of introduction of why is it so important, and maybe if you're starting, or wanting to develop your career into, and I know Andy mentioned he's wanting to get more involved with AI. Part of it is, I guess there's two sides of it. There's testing of AI systems. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, which is called testing of AI infused systems. And that's what I was part of the ISO 29119 part 11 testing of artificial intelligence systems with other people that were on the committee, such as Adam Smith, who I know spoke at the Europe this week at one of the AI summit events, supporting kind of the new legislations. The next one is using AI to help you do testing, right? So, there's been, talks already, many talks for the last maybe 5 years where you can use tools and take advantage of maybe things like large language models to assist you. And that might be, what usability tests, or, there was a great example, which I think Andy again mentioned about Lavina being, best in class for accessibility. So if you don't know the WCAG standards, or you've not looked into the new European Accessibility Act, which comes into force later this year, then finding somebody who's a mentor or a connection who's already very heavily involved in accessibility can help. But also, if you haven't got Lavina on call, you can also use something like your Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot to ask it, well, what does this mean for me? What do I need to be thinking about? What kind of use cases? What kind of test cases? So there's an aspect of what I refer to as AI productivity. And that's really about, well, how do we use tools? And I'm going to call them at the moment in this kind of box in the middle, which is I guess, using AI in a single area. So testing is a great example, or developing. So, Andy trying to learn Python. My youngest, she's at college at the moment, and she sent me a quite stressed, whilst I was in Rotterdam, a message saying, look, I can't make my Python code run. And I said to her, oh, did you go to, cursor.com, download Cursor, and then use Control K or Alt K to then select the code, ask it to fix it, and get the automatic code generation to help you solve the problem. And she went off and did that. And she's 17, and wanting to learn Python, and that's using the tools for development or for testing. Where agentic gets a bit more exciting is really where it extends out. It extends out into cross SDLC. So, Lavina with accessibility might be quite close to the design and mock-up team, right? So if people are using Figma or some other way of designing their layouts, Lavina might be, looking and making, suggestions around, well, what should we be doing? What kind of things like colors and contrasts and stuff should we be avoiding? So there's a lot around you going between the different areas and then also using, I guess, AI across those. So it might be that Figma or another tool sending Lavina a message saying, does this look acceptable? And, Lavina will write back and, really collaborate onto these things. So, I think that's really where we're talking about the benefit is going and unlocking across the SDLC where you can use these tools, not just in isolation. And I know we're not in isolation. I know we're very much about collaborating with the wider teams, but also it's really about thinking about those use cases, security, non-functional, et cetera, et cetera. So quite a lot of exciting stuff. And then again, I kind of mentioned a term at the start, which was AI assurance. And I do genuinely believe this is an upcoming area for people who are, definitely starting their careers and they're thinking about where should we be testing? Well, we should be testing of AI infused systems, right? We should be working out how to test these systems that we're building, which might have recommendation engines, so the traditional machine learning kind of TensorFlow capabilities, or they might be more advanced and be using some kind of, fancy RAG architecture or, large language models or generative capabilities. So, like I said, I was lucky enough to be with Joanna and Adam and Rex Black from the Artificial Intelligence for Software Testing ISO committee. But most of you, or some of you, may already be very aware that there's a new standard that's just come out called the ISO 42001. And this is interesting. You can see it's 2003. Is that this came into force and only 7 organizations are actually fully accredited to this. So a bit like the 9,000 standards, which most organizations need to do, 42,000 is for anyone who's building AI systems. So you'll see in here, there's things like AI risk assessments. There's a lot more around, building or involvement from what we would class as quality engineers to think about, well, how do I, make it auditable? How do I make sure that it's trustworthy, it's repeatable? So there's so much happening in this space. I put some of the items in on the side there for you to look at. There's things like AI Standards Hub, which is a really great resource to go off and actually download some of these. Is a lot of information, so you probably want to, actually look at, maybe even feeding those into your favorite chat GPT and asking it to summarize. But, and say, well, I'm working in I think Andy was just joined back in geology, right? And I might not know some components of what I need to be thinking about based on risk models. A lot of people in the geology space, using MATLAB, right? So part of it is, well, maybe I'm not looking at an M wave, or I don't really understand what I'm seeing here. You want to simplify it, you can use these kind of tools, but also there's probably aspects of machine learning that are actually in your tools today. So anyway, like I said, I've got about 5 more minutes. So I wanted to just kind of, because we focused a little bit about agentic and where that is today, and I'm only on a couple more slides now, is I wanted to kind of open that up to say, well, actually, there's a lot of different roles. We've talked about some of those roles today, things like performance, non-functional, but also there's, depending on where you are, it's involving the business, right? So you might be, and I've just added this, which you probably saw in the TED talk, this very simple think, create, or learning aspect. If you're in the thinking stage, you might be thinking about, expressing things like, how do I write Gherkin or test-driven development? There's lots of different kind of techniques which are thinking activities that you might be able to do. Again, they could be leveraging AI to help you write better requirements or write better Gherkin. For those keen-eyed of you, they probably are very aware that Sonnet Claude 3.7 dropped last week, which is specifically designed for testing. So if you've got an Anthropic account, you can ask it about test-driven development or ask it about Gherkin and ask it, what are the use cases? So people like Elizabeth Hendrickson's, Explore It book, which is a fantastic book on acceptance test-driven development. Those kind of techniques really help you go through and identify how to write better thinking aspects, or as you do your testing thinking activities. And then there's the creation aspect. Some of you may be dabbling with open source capabilities and creating Python like Andy was. Some of you might be more focused on manual testing. Still 80% of testing is done manually. That's not going away. That's not going to change with AI. It's just going to give you superpowers, right? And with those superpowers, you'll get better insights instead of having to go through all the logs and, do more analysis. You'll get that information start coming to you. So again, lots of really good information and lots of great use cases that I think really Agentic's going to help. And I kind of try and help, position this. And this was on stage in Lisbon last year, is that actually agentic is much more than generative. So I know we've been talking about, and a lot of people have just referred to it as AI, but we've talked about generative AI for the last 3 or 4 years, since 2019, really. But agentic AI is definitely hot for 2025, and it's really putting some of this maturity around it. So you'll probably see at the bottom here, there's things like safety checks and bias, which has already been brought up around. And there's definitely, when you think of things like, all the kind of the ethics that sit around there as well, there's so many questions that I think, we need great testers and to get involved from a diverse background and skills in different and knowledges in different areas, right? Anyway, I want to kind of at least open up to some kind of Q&A with like the last remaining 1 minute. But, again, I think, the message hasn't really changed. This was the message I think we all kind of partially agreed on by the end of last year, that actually AI will not replace you, is that actually a person using AI may. So, once, Andy gets his plays around a little bit more with some of the AI tools, he's going to get even better at what he does. And I think that's going to be the same for all of us. It's our own personal journey now to start trying to embrace this technology and not fear it, because part of it is it's not going to change. Like I said to my daughter, is that she said, "Oh, well, you've helped me now fix my Python code. Does that mean I cheated?" And I said, "Well, it's very similar to when they told you you can't take a calculator into the exam because when you grow up, you won't have a calculator." Well, we all have a calculator or an iPhone. This technology is not going to go away, and in 10 years' time, it's just going to be part of everyone's life. So, think about that, but think of it as the positive side of things. And so I'm going to leave with that, and hopefully, and hand back to Lavina. And I know Gamati's going to have a phenomenal talk
Thank
after
you.
as well. But I'm obviously happy to take questions. Otherwise, you can always connect to me on LinkedIn.
Yes, and I've
Like
put
Lavina.
your LinkedIn on the chat. So if you have any questions for Jonathan, feel free to reach out to him. And yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you.
My
Okay, so on to our final speaker, Gomati. I would like to give a small little introduction. She is a director of QA at Simba Chain. She's a technology leader, and she is an avid speaker, a writer about software testing, as well as an advocate for women in tech. So let's invite Gomati on the stage, who will be speaking to us about leading with humanity in the age of AI.
Hi. Firstly, thanks, Lavina, for organizing this amazing event, especially based on the International Women's Day concept. And I think I would like to thank Simon, Andy, and Jonathan. I think this flow happened thanks to Jonathan for switching, because he did touch on the agentic AI, and my talk is going to be about how can we lead with humanity in this age of AI. So before further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, 1 second. So I've got 3 different screens. So I'm just ensuring I'm sharing the right one. Okay, can you see my screen?
We
Someone?
can now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let me start. Welcome to my talk today, and it is a pleasure that I'm presenting to you all on this topic, which is very much relevant and shaping the future of leadership. AI in itself, it's rapidly growing, changing, transforming industries. And I think as leaders, and some of us as future leaders, we need to consider that leadership is not just about technology and advancement. It's also about people. And today we'll explore that a bit more in detail. So I'm Gomti Ramlingam, Director of QA and Product Delivery at SIGiST. SIGiST, we are a blockchain-based company. We've got platform products, services, and we do that for a vast majority of customers across Gov and the commercial aspect. So before we get going, I'll just do a little bit about me. This is my happy little family, my boys, my support system. I do want to touch on something. My son, he's 12, but he does take his time. Every single presentation, every single talk I do, he does sit down, listen to me, and give his own feedback. And that's one of the mum and son duo thing that we do. And he did give me a feedback that I should change the picture because he doesn't think he looks, he doesn't think he has got the riz in this. That's the Gen Alpha talk. So that's that. And as a family, we love traveling, we love exploring places, and I think that gives us the time to enjoy the nature, at the same time enjoy different cultures. I'm a very fussy vegetarian, so explore different food habits, and that is something that we as a family love doing. And if I have to tell about my me time, it's all about running. It was not like I started running when I was very young. I had a very critical illness, and I think I just got hooked onto running. And I run when I want to break from things that I'm doing. I run when I just want to go out for a run. It's just something that is my stress buster. And what I would say is, in doing so, I've done a handful of half marathons, and I've completed the London Marathon twice. And today, because today's talk or the event is based on International Women's Day, I do want to share my secret recipe for where I am today. That's my mom, and that's my mother-in-law, who is also my mom. So these two women are poles apart. My mom has been a homemaker ever since she got married. She's taken care of everything in the house, and she's never had a professional career or a journey like that. And my mother-in-law, on the other hand, is a chartered accountant, has worked in various countries, and she's seen everything as part of her life. Though their worlds are different, the journeys are different, they both have actually taught me the same values, that I, as a woman especially, should never stop. I should keep going, achieve things everything that I want to do. So to my cheerleaders, I do want to say thank you. And for me, they are leaders in their own space and in their own ways. So once we are talking about leaders, so what is the biggest challenge that today's leaders have, or do they face in today's AI era? And when I think about it, that I always feel it is the challenge is, the biggest challenge that they have is harnessing the technological advancements that we get with AI and preserving the human aspect of it, the human networking or the human connections with it, right? So this is what I call the balancing act of technology with empathy. And how can we, as leaders, how can we actually combine these two, find the balance between technology and empathy, and ensure that we navigate the tension that we have today, where we can see the gains that we get from using AI, but at the same time, we can see that there is a potential erosion that we have in workplace relationships or the emotional intelligence. there have been a lot of conversations I've had with leaders, in my networks, and something that I have always picked up, and I have narrowed it down into two areas. One being that as a leader, when I have to implement AI, I am worried about how I can use this AI solution to augment human judgments rather than just replacing it, right? Especially in areas which are very sensitive domains, for instance, in healthcare or education or even customer service. I think Jonathan touched on it about the AI assurance aspect, and we will dive bit deep into it. And for me, beyond the implementation of the AI in AI solutions in our system, there's also a factor that as leaders, as human beings, we bear the responsibility that we have to create an ethical framework that protects the vulnerable population of today who might not understand everything about AI. But at the same time, we need to drive innovation. So why is this happening? Why do we suddenly have to balance all these things? What is the shift? And for me, what I would say is AI is no longer just a tool that we are going to use. It is influencing every aspect of our life. It is from transforming industries. It is not just changing the way I work, it's reshaping the way I work, what I do, the routine things that it is automating, and not just at work, right? It is also changing how we actually live. And this is what I call the shift. The shift is nothing but how AI is transforming industries and revolutionizing areas that we never thought it could. And at the same time, it is one factor that I have seen is how it's influencing the critical aspect of the decision making that a human mind does. And as leaders, with this shift, what we have the biggest challenge is how we can manage and get the collaboration between human and AI so that we can understand what our customer needs. We can educate our team what this technological change is going to bring about, and ensure that AI implementation is going to just enhance what we are doing rather than just diminish our human experience, let it be from customer service or any other industries, right? And for me, when I'm looking at all these aspects, empathy becomes the superpower that will help leadership in the shift. So why does empathy matter? So as we were just discussing, right, empathy is the key trait for leadership in today's world. While let's look at it like this, right? So there's AI and there's the human aspect. So AI can do a lot of things with data. It can process a vast amount of data. It can recognize patterns. It can automate routine activities and repetitive activities. But it cannot, at least today, I truly feel that it cannot truly understand the human emotion or the context for a decision making. For instance, in the healthcare industry, there could be an AI system that can go through my medical records, and if I've got an ailment, it can tell me what is the condition that I have. It can even suggest the treatments that I can go through. But can it completely comprehend with my fear that what I'm going through at that point of time? And can it provide that reassurance that I would need from a doctor talking to me or giving me a pat on my shoulder saying, this is what we're going to do. These are the treatments that we can do for you, and you're going to be completely all right. And that is the aspect that AI lacks, the emotional intelligence. And as humans, we are inherently social creatures. We need that emotional conversations. We need that connections, especially at times when we need the reassurance or when there is a big change that is happening. And introducing AI into our systems or at a workplace, for instance, it creates, I'm sure majority of us would agree with it, there is this anxiety within us about, is my job secure? Is my skill still relevant in today's world with AI coming up? And how would the workplace dynamic change? Would I be having 10 other people in my team? Or are they going to be just like, agentic AIs around me? Those sort of fear factors do come in. And I remember that I read in an article about IBM's AI implementation. So they involved, or they created AI ambassadors within each team who would demo what the AI implementation work is going on and how it would actually help the team or for their day-to-day activities, rather than creating a threat for their jobs. So what I would say is that the most successful AI implementation will occur when leaders recognize that this huge technological change comes with even bigger or huger emotional change that can be handled with empathetic thinking. So when we're talking about empathy and how we can, lead, how leadership should handle it, for me, I've got four key strategies: human-centric decision making, ethical AI implementation, people-first culture, and transparent communication. They are self-explanatory, but we'll just quickly deep dive into it. I know we have got like a few minutes to go through, so I will make that as quick as possible. So human-centric decision making. When we say human-centric decision making, it is nothing but putting people in the center of the decisions that we make, right? And at the heart of the decisions that we make, even though I know we will use and leverage AI to provide insights, to assist us, to provide the results for whatever research that we are doing. And I will touch on this amazing quality of humans, which is being compassionate, right? Compassion is a very unique trait for me, because what it does is it enhances our decision making, but it also, by considering the two elements, that is the emotional and the social impact of an action that I do. So for instance, I would say that if in an organization they're implementing AI, and one of the efficient way of doing this is, say, layoffs. As a compassionate leader, right, you can think about alternative ways rather than just saying, yeah, lay off 10 people or 15 people are going to be laid off. We can think about reskilling those employees or the team members, or replacing them or repositioning them in areas where there is more human aspect needed for it, or even like offering a phased retirement plan. Any of these could be a better human-centric solution rather than just jumping straight into layoffs. And thus, what we are doing is we are balancing the AI aspect with the human mind, right? So as humans, we've got different aspects that we do. We are very creative. We bring in the ethical aspects of things, and we are very contextual. We understand how to react to a decision or a situation. And when we add AI to it, we're gonna make the handling of the people much better in a situation. For example, right? So in this scenario, we could think of an example that in the finance industry, right? So we can do a market analysis with AI, provided the vast amount of data, predict how the market is going to function. But if I have enough experience and I'm a seasoned investor, for instance, I would even account for those unpredictable scenarios and be ready for those. So that's the sort of areas that we can work on as leaders. So the next one is the ethical AI implementation. This is something that, when we talk about AI, this comes up because human values are something that AI needs to share, how it can provide us the explainability aspect of it. That is, it can explain why it is making a decision, but at the same time, protect or the sensitive data that it should not share. Let it be GDPR or let it be anything in the healthcare industry as well. Those sort of things is we have to implement all those guidelines around it. When we are talking about biases, obviously, if the AI, for instance, in an let's say in an hiring industry, right? If the algorithm is trained or the AI system is trained on data which is biased, then there's going to be inequalities in the hiring process. So an organization needs to think about having vast amount of data to ensure that there is equality in those areas. So how can we establish these guidelines? Obviously, one of the things is the EU's AI Act. I think we discussed a lot more on that when Jonathan's panel discussion, because it was just the day when that happened. How to ensure transparency in the decision making, or making sure we have regular audits to uphold fairness and accountability. And there is also frameworks out there, ISO, if I'm not wrong, 42001, which companies can adopt for an ethical AI governance around it. So obviously the next strategy is going to be the people first culture. Prioritize the well-being of people, ensure that people are being upskilled, to encourage that human AI collaboration that we spoke about earlier. It is all about investing in people alongside of technology, because as leaders, we want to create organizations that remain adaptable and resilient and can carry on through the shift, carry on through the challenge that we are facing today. And for that, we do need to ensure that people are upskilled, people understand what AI is, teams are happy, and at the same time, their well-being, their continuous learning for an AI collaboration is critical. And the last strategy, I don't know if I can call this a strategy, but it is about being very transparent with your communications. What I have seen personally is, as a leader, if you're transparent, you build a foundation called trust with your team. And your team, in turn, becomes very loyal to you. Your team respects you. And what that leads to is a team that can work together, can understand each other, the reasons behind what we are doing. And these are qualities that no algorithm can provide in today's world. And keeping our employees informed in the sense that some employees, not everybody, but some of us still think that AI is a black box. I don't know what it's going to do. It's making decisions, and I don't understand where it is giving me these decisions from, or where it is deciphering this information and giving me this decision. So as leaders, I think it is our role to explain what is AI's role, what its impact is in our workplace, in our life, address any concerns, any questions that they have. And as I said, that's the key to building the trust, to developing any AI solutions within the organization. And so finally, what does the future of leadership look like today? If as leaders, we can think about blending this AI aspects and insights along with the human aspects that we have, or the values that we have. I think personally, leaders who can master this balance, they would just survive the transition, the shift. They will be part of organizations that will grow immensely by combining this technological advancement along with the human understanding. So I would like to call for action and ask you today, how will you lead with humanity in the age of AI? And one last quote I would like to add at the end of it is, AI can process data, but it's only humans who can understand and process the meaning and the emotion behind it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gomati. Really, really interesting talk, and especially one of the topics, as Jonathan said, around AI is the hot topic right now, and how do we actually go with thought leadership around it and make sure that we're doing the right sort of things with the skill sets we have as testers, obviously. So thank you so much. I invite anyone who is keen to ask any questions to Gomati. And Gomati, really, really interesting slides.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, if anybody does have any questions, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and yeah, my DM is open for you.
Yes, I'm literally just putting your
Ah,
LinkedIn page onto the chat.